So I'm here at CES with Barbara Shipley, Chief Brand Officer at AARP. And I think today we're going to talk a little bit about how AARP brings out its mission to the market, and that mission being making sure that the aging population live their best lives. Yeah. So I'm really excited to have this convo. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, so let's start.
Okay.
You and I were talking a little bit earlier about, we think that people at CES might have a question. Why is AARP here at CES? And the answer to me, at least, wasn't exactly obvious, but then you were saying AARP really believes that technology has a role, a strong role, in enabling that aging community to live their best lives more easily, more securely, more enjoyably. And I think you guys termed a coin for that concept as well. Tell me a little bit more.
Yes, we coined a phrase a couple of years ago that has really stuck. And I love how obvious it is. The phrase is age tech.
Yeah.
And it really came to us because age tech sort of lives at the intersection of longevity and technology. And we firmly believe that as the global population continues to age, there's the longevity piece. Technology is what makes aging easier for everybody. And so we started building our presence at CES. Over the last several years, we are now a huge exhibitor with our Age Tech Collaborative, which is an ecosystem that we built that now has almost 600 members of big brands, global brands, startups, service groups, test beds, researchers. Yeah. And my vision is to someday bring actual consumers into the Age Tech Collaborative, and if not AARP, then who?
Yeah, I love that. I was thinking about, in anticipation of this interview, my dad, and he is, just your prime core audience. He's got a wearable monitoring his health. He's got security in his second home for when he's not there. He buys cars that have the detections for other cars coming in, and he does this and he spends the money for that so that he and his mom, or my mom, feel more safe and they're having fun. So proof point of one, but I believe that your mission is spot on. So let's talk about that audience that I just kind of described via my dad. It's huge. It's 50 plus Americans. You said it in the session before, it's not an audience, it's almost like a country.
Yeah. 110 million people in the US alone.
Jeez.
And it's also, listen, this isn't just my data, this is just general data, but it always surprises people.
Yeah.
When I remind them that in 5.5 short years, millennials will start turning 50. And we are very much now at AARP focusing on Gen X and younger boomers and the unique struggles that a lot of that sort of cohort feels as caregivers. You talked about your parents. It sounds like they're very mobile. It sounds like they are really they're living their best life. But for people like you with aging parents, and maybe you have kids that you're also raising,
I do.
There's going to come a day where the phone will ring.
Yeah.
And life will change. And it could be a couple of different things. It could be that someone's taken a fall or someone's gotten a diagnosis. And so as caregivers, as family caregivers, these are the unpaid caregivers, the daughters, the sons, the neighbors, who do such an extraordinary job helping their older friends and family. And so as an advocacy organization, that's very important for AARP. And technology plays a huge role in families being able to care for each other, even though they may not live next door to each other.
Yes, yeah. It's surprising to me. I mean, if you think about even my mom, right? She always says to me, texting, while annoying at some point, connects her to her family in ways that she would never have thought were possible. So I buy into that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, how do you bring your message to life in creative with the visuals and the language that you use? Are there things that you think about to resonate with those folks and not demean them necessarily?
It's a great question. And we're here at CES, but we're also here with an audience of marketers, right? So you have the entire chain here at CES. You have the product developers, and you have the people marketing those products. And it's a ripe place for AARP to speak to the product developers, move upstream, and help them understand the importance of age tech and tech-enabled appliances, cars, health and wellness solutions. But also from a marketing standpoint, how important it is to get the aging story right.
Yep.
And that is a big part of my job and my mission at AARP.
With authenticity and with empathy. I think that's really important.
Well, and I think, yes, the authenticity, you're 100% right, also comes from recognizing sometimes our own biases, that we may be perpetuating stereotypes or cliches that not only aren't true, but can also be a little bit insulting.
Yep.
And so, this is not a charitable message that I bring to marketers. This is a business message. And in tech alone, in the next couple of years, you're going to see this audience spending north of $120 billion on technology. When you see the contribution that people 50 plus make to GDP at $65 trillion, it starts to sink in that, wait, this really is a market. One of my biggest ahas that I share is that aging is actually fueling economies around the world. It's not a drain on economies, and it is fueling more sectors than just healthcare, even though health and wellness is absolutely booming. So I think that for marketers, it's an opportunity to sort of take a pause and recognize maybe what they don't know or what they aren't able to suss out from the current research that they're doing, or that the creative may not be meeting what they need because the brief may be a little bit more limited, or a brief that we might have used 20 years ago. And the other thing is how we're constructing teams. So we've very strongly believed, and this won't come as a surprise to anybody, but I believe everybody should get on board with making age an important element of diversity in their workplaces. You really made me
think, because I was in your previous session and I'm a marketer, I started to think about my representation in my marketing, and you're right, it's not entirely the first thing that you think of, age as something that you should represent.
And how you're building your teams. Because we have 5 generations in the same workforce, in the same workplace in many cases. And we should be celebrating that. And we do that too. We definitely want to advocate for older workers. There's no doubt about that. And we work to change the mindset of hiring managers and bust all these myths about older workers. But I would say an equally important message for AARP is simply the value of a multi-generational workforce. That's where you get the diversity of thought, all the different experiences coming to bear on just a better work product. And I think that that's an important thing for all of us to be thinking about, valuing the experience that comes from having been around and seen a lot.
I love that. So we talked about the who, we talked about the message. Let's talk about the channels, how we get that message out. So I work at Innovid, and our company is powering the future of TV advertising. And when I think about how people engage with the biggest screen in their house, and I think about, for example, the grandparents in our family who are cord cutters. So they have Apple TV, they're streaming Disney Plus with the kids. It's incredible. People don't automatically think of channels like CTV or like social media, TikTok. What are some of the channels that AARP thinks about that might surprise people?
Well, so one that won't surprise people, but I do want to make clear, is that linear TV still works in many ways. But what is it about linear TV? It's the destination viewing for us. We are present in sports. So that kind of helps us, along with other news and some of the other things. And it depends on the message that we're delivering. We are big believers in connected television. We love the data-driven approach. We love what the future holds for that in terms of personalization.
And interactivity.
Absolutely, the interactivity is key. And in social, AARP, I applaud our social team. They're in my group, but I still am in awe of everything that they are able to do. They're able to stay ahead of trends. No surprise that we are on Facebook. That makes a lot of sense. But I'm mostly interested in sharing about what we're doing on TikTok and also Instagram. But we are doing some really interesting things on TikTok that may surprise people. It's not unlike how surprising it is to see AARP at CES. That's a big part of our brand story. And the way we bring our brand to life and drive relevancy is to surprise people. We have a track record and a lot of permission in pop culture. We've been doing it for decades. So we sort of took that, some of the pop culture fun, because our brand does want to have fun. Our people do like to have fun, and sort of brought that to TikTok in unique ways to create engaging content that shows multiple generations interacting, laughing, competing. And bringing some of this, the pop culture to life. We have people following us on TikTok, and they themselves admit, I never thought that I would be following AARP, seeking AARP's content, and telling all my friends they should be following AARP, and they are. And that, to me, is a huge recognition that our brand has the elasticity that it needs, as long as we're able to line up the content, the channel, the audience, in the right way, but still be authentic. You know, we did not want to find ourselves on TikTok and trying to be cooler than we are. And so we leaned into what we already have permission to do. And it's been a lot of fun. And it's really, really showed us some things. It's been sort of an experimental lab for us that I think has been fascinating.
So let's kind of wrap the conversation with that. If you had some insight to share with other marketers that are trying to reach this extremely important group of people, what would it be?
So I have insights, and I also have some advice, if that's okay. One is, and this is going to sound pretty basic, but think about the imagery that you're using. Imagery is very important to shaping a new image of aging, as you can imagine. And several years ago, AARP launched a partnership with Getty Images. And we have a signature collection at Getty Images called the Disrupt Aging Collection.
Did you hear that?
And it is really helping marketers rethink the imagery. For example, you know, what used to be popular, which was very sort of gauzy and polished, now is very real. You want to show over 50 women doing aerobics with their friends, and they are a little sweaty, and they do have, they're in their exercise. So the imagery is important, and I would encourage people to think about what they can find at the collection.
Thank you so much, Barbara. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
It was such a pleasure meeting you. Thank you, and I loved the conversation.
Great.
And I hope your parents are doing well.